everyone, and welcome to another episode of Confidence and Creativity, a show that equips entrepreneurs and leaders to show up for themselves and express confidence and creativity in business and in life. I am your host, Samantha McCoy, and today joining us is Tanna Abraham. Tanna empowers others to live purpose-filled lives. Her desire for people to experience lasting change fuels her passion for ministry. Tanna's life experiences have birthed in her an affinity to those who seek sincere and relevant answers that will help them find meaning and hope in the face of daily challenges. Her dynamic energy and transparent personality encourages others to live with boldness, integrity, and excellence. Tanna is the founder and president of Woman on Purpose. She just hosted a virtual conference this year, which was amazing. And so I brought her onto the show just to talk a little bit about her journey and how she developed Women on Purpose, and just to share some words of encouragement with us, because she is just a powerhouse and someone who inspires me in so many ways. So welcome to the show, Tanna. So glad to have you.
Hi, Sam. Thank you so much for having me. Can I tell you how much I hate having my bio read? I cringe every time.
No, you should be happy. You have accomplished so many amazing things, and I definitely wanted to give the people some of that tea, just a little bit of the tip of the iceberg, so to speak.
A little, thank you.
So Tanna, you know what? I just have to let the people know that you are an amazing person, because I think you are the only person who was able to get me to do work for you before we actually met in person, okay?
Yes.
So Tanna had me doing work for her. She started her conference. When was your first conference? 2007?
Like 2008?
2008.
2008.
I didn't know her at all. We connected through a mutual friend, Stephanie Shabazz, and she had me working for her, writing bios, doing workshops, and I had never met her. I didn't meet her until I actually went to her conference in person. It was in New York, right?
Yeah, and that was 3 years later or something.
Oh, wait, so I was doing something before that?
Yeah, you were. You did it for the first conference, but we met, I think, at the second or third conference, which was 3 years later.
So I did the first one, and I didn't go to that one, but I was just doing work.
You did all the literature for that conference. You did my bio. You did all the write-ups for the workshops. You did all the write-ups for Women on Purpose at the time. Yeah, girl, you did it all.
Now, the crazier part is that I don't remember doing all that work. I remember that. I remember doing the workshop after, but I don't remember everything. But anyway, the point is that you are an amazing person to be able to get me to do work even before we met in person. So that was how I met Tanna, everybody. So since then, one of the blessings of that has come even in the midst of this quarantine season that we are still in is that we've had the opportunity to reconnect. And Tanna has relaunched her Women on Purpose ministry, and also has a podcast as well. So Tanna, I just wanted to have you come on and talk about your journey, because you have a little bit of a different journey, I think, than some people, as opposed to, just some people get a vision, they get a dream, and they just go for it, and they might struggle a little bit at first, and then, it just keeps going. But your story is a little bit different. And I really just wanted you to share how you started and how you came to where you are now.
Oh, wow. Yes, I will be happy to. And, one of the things I was thinking of as you were talking is just how one of the things that we didn't say is that we were also very young. We were very young. So we're talking, early 20s or something. And of course, our outlook on life at that point, our vigor, our passion for life, it's just different. It's like the sky's the limit. I can just jump out there tomorrow and be whatever I want to be, and everything is going to fall in line, right? And so fast forward to, 10, 15 years later, after life has slapped you up a little bit, it's like, you kind of develop some reserves along the way. So, so it was definitely different at that time. And you're absolutely right. I started Women on Purpose in 2007. I started in 2007. It was actually, I had a class, I had a class in school
Mm-hmm.
that I had to do a project for. And I don't remember the actual class, but we had to form an organization, and I did mine as a women's organization. So we had to do like the blueprint for it, mission, vision, kind of how we will scale it out in the first year, all of that stuff. So I put mine together. I always had a passion, for women, even at a young age, barely being a woman myself, but always had a passion, for that. And so it was just something that was in my heart. So that's what I went ahead and did. I did a women's organization, put the project together, turned it in, got an A. When my professor was handing it back to me, he said, "Tanna, go and start that women's organization. Don't sleep on it. Go and start it." And I said, okay, we'll do. And of course, my life has shifted in that time, but it was always in my heart. And so I started working on it piece by piece. And I said, well, what am I going to call it? And I remember I was reading a book one summer by Michelle McKinney-Hammond, and she said in the book, in her opening chapter, we were created women on purpose. And I said, oh my gosh, that's it. That is the name of the book. That is the name of the org. We're going to call it Women on Purpose. And so that's kind of how it evolved. And at the time, did my research and kind of formed a little team and decided, okay, I'm going to launch this. And being young and, 20 something and just eager for life, I was like, and we're going to have a big old conference. And I'm going to invite all my friends from wherever they are in the US, and they're going to fly in and we're going to have a conference. And so, that's of course where you came in, and Stephanie, who I had met years previously, was a part of the board, and we kind of got together, and they, the board kind of supported me, and we were like, okay, we're going to do this. Let's do this. And we put the conference together. And, it was great. And of course, a lot of lessons learned through that. And, but I had a lot of personal life transitions during that time. So from 2008, when we actually had the conference, I think I launched 2007, had the conference in 2008, just had a lot, moved around a lot, had a lot of, different life happenings. Of course, got a son in the process, and just a lot of different life happenings. But the burden and the passion for Women on Purpose was always there. And so that's something I say to people all the time when they're like, well, how do I know what my purpose is? And I'm like, well, what is your burden? What is the thing that keeps coming back to you? What is the thing that's always on your heart? What is the thing that sometimes keeps you up at night? And so even in the times, and there are several times where I was like, okay, you know what? Despite what's going on, I'm not going to let my life impact what's happening with my organization. I'm going to push forward with it. Yeah. And I would for a season. And then again, I would, allow life to come in. And so it was a lot of start and stop along the way. And it wasn't like I wasn't having success when I started. That wasn't that at all. I would always, maybe not numerically had the numbers, but always the quality, always, the things that we did, people always spoke, about how much they enjoyed it and how much it really encouraged them. And so it wasn't that, but it was just kind of being intentional about not allowing life to overtake this call that God had placed on my life. And so finally this year, pandemic happened, and within the last I think year, again, Lord had just had you need to revive Women on Purpose. Come on, Tanna, you need to do this. But I was so busy with work. I was traveling a lot. I had taken a new position. Of course, I have a young child, and I am PTA president, and just again, life happenings. Life is happening all around me, and girl, just like the Lord did for all of us, a screeching halt in 2020 of
Yep.
March 2020. And I got laid off maybe a week into the shutdown and was
Wow.
devastated. Did not see it coming. I mean, I was crying for probably a whole month, depressed for probably 2 months, just did not see this coming.
Yeah.
And once I got myself together, it was right there again. Women on purpose,
Wow.
women on purpose, women on purpose. And so I pulled up our website. And the thing is, the crazy thing, Sam, is I have the blueprint for everything. I have written down,
Wow.
all these things are there because it's always something I'm writing. I'm
Yeah.
always, again, the burden has always been in my heart.
Yep.
And so I went and dug up all those things, the little random notes I have around the house,
Yeah.
the computer, all the files I had. I pulled everything together on my bed one day and I said, we're going to do this. And so I threw myself into that, decided to start a podcast. Girl, I wasn't even a podcast person, had never listened to a podcast in my life.
Wow.
And decided, well, I was going to start a podcast with it. And then from that, I said, you know what? I'm going to do a conference this year. People are locked in. We need a conference.
Wow.
So do a conference. And so, it's just been amazing. And I think for me, it's the testament to when it's something that not giving up no matter what. And I think sometimes we feel like, oh, people are going to talk about us if we stop and start and be like, oh, here she go again trying to do that. But it's not even about that. It's about doing what that you are here to do. And that is my purpose. Helping other women discover their purpose is my purpose. And so, yeah, I know I said a lot, but
that's such an amazing and powerful story. And I really appreciate you sharing that. And that's really what I wanted to focus on for this episode, because I just wanted to encourage people who might be listening and watching who, may have had something that they did start at some point. And then, they, for whatever reason, they had to stop, whether they were forced to stop or, life happened or whatever it is. And they might think, oh my goodness, I cannot go back to that, or I can't pick that up. Like in our previous episode, I interviewed Rob Broadus, and he just came out with his brand new music project. And he said that he started writing his songs 8 years ago. And now he's just to the point where he has come out with his project. But there was a process along the way, and he had to learn and grow along with that. And so I really like your story as well, because I think sometimes when we receive a vision, especially something that we believe that God has placed on our hearts, we can get discouraged sometimes if, for some reason it doesn't work out exactly the way that it goes. And then we can also sometimes think, oh, maybe this isn't what God wanted me to do, because if it was, I would have just been able to keep going. So how did you just mentally, what was that like for you as far as just to first kind of inspire or motivate yourself to start? And then did you have any doubts about whether this really was what you were supposed to be doing?
That's a great question. So there are two things I think I had to learn along the way. And one of it is to block out all the outside noises. Because a lot of times the second guessing isn't because it's not what's in our heart or what was spoken to us. It's because of all the noise around us, right? Good. And so I had to get to the point where I blocked that out. God, it's me and you. If you are telling me go in another direction, that's fine. But again, that was consistently on my heart from the time I did that project. That was on my heart. It never faded. It never went away. So it was always there. The why and the what was always there.
Yeah.
The question is the how, right? And what we have to understand is that the how sometimes changes. That changes. The why and the what does not change. The how, the way we execute the what and the why tends to change. And we look at that change sometimes as bad change. And it is not. And we look at that as like, oh, well, maybe God didn't call me, because if he called me, just like you said, it would have worked out perfectly.
Yep.
And that is not the case, because sometimes God just wants us, he wants our obedience in the stepping out, right?
Yeah.
So I always say for the scripture where it says the word is a light unto our feet and a lamp unto our path. I was raised in St. Thomas, where there's hurricanes all the time. So I know the difference between a lamp and a light.
Wow.
With a lamp only lights where you're standing, whereas a flashlight lights where you point it to. And so sometimes it's in the taking the step with the lamp in our hand. It's not until we've taken the step that we know what the next step is.
That's good.
So when I first took the step to start back to say, in April, May, whatever time I got out of my mood that I was in. And when I took that step to say, okay, let me grab all my Women on Purpose stuff I've had over the years and let me see, when I took that step and say, okay, I'm going to revive this. And I took the step, then God said a podcast lit up along the way. And I took the step, and then it was like, okay, let's do a conference.
Yeah.
And so sometimes it's us taking the step, right?
Yeah.
And then another thing lights. We don't always know the how. The how doesn't always make sense. And it doesn't always give you a full-on roadmap. It doesn't. I mean, there are people who have created a blueprint. This is what it's going to look like. This is how it's going to go, whatever. But sometimes the flip side to that is that we can get so tight in the planning that there's no room for God to move in it, And yes, we might be having success, but are we being effective, right? Those are two very different things.
Good.
And so I had to really block out the noise and really say to myself, the what and the why has never changed. It's always been constant. The how has, and that's when I have to turn my ears to the Lord, to pray, to seek, to study, to Google. I tell everybody I have a PhD from Google, to do research, to do all that stuff to determine the how.
Yeah. No, that's amazing. And what I really also love about you is that you don't do anything small. So like when I tell you that Tanna's conference, I mean, over the top, like graphics, video intros, I mean, just all kinds of things. So just being able to not only move forward, but move forward with that level of excellence. So Tanna, I think one thing that you're really good about doing is really seeing what other people's gifts are. Like even when you were talking about when you started back in 2007, like you had a team immediately. There was no like, hey, let me bootstrap, let me see how far I can go on my own. And then, 3 years later, I'll get a team of people. So what was that process, or what is something that has helped you to be able to trust a team and start that delegation process even when you first start out?
Yeah, so you are right. I did form a team because I also knew that what God was calling me to do was not something I could do on my own. But like I said earlier, part of my call is helping others discover their purpose, right? Yeah. And so I have a keen eye for saying, for looking at people and seeing something that they might not have seen, or something that they might not have really explored much, and say, hey, you have this. Can you come over here and do this for me?
Yeah.
I would love to give you the platform, the opportunity to do that. And I don't know necessarily where that came from, but it's definitely something I've had.
Yeah.
But I love it. Someone said to me recently, as my podcast was ending, they were like, oh, your podcast was great. I'm hoping, my prayer for you is that, for your next season, you'll be able to interview some really big names. And I was like, actually,
oh, wow.
Actually, no, that is not my prayer for myself, because the Michelle Obamas are already Michelle Obama, right? the Oprahs are already Oprahs. I'm not
Yeah.
interested in interviewing that, though that would be great if I had the opportunity, but I am interested in interviewing the next Oprah. I would like to introduce you to the next Michelle Obama, you know. I would like to introduce you to the next person that will be, and so I think for me, like, that's really, like, my passion really lies in that. It's I just get so excited when I see other people, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I see this in you. Like, hey, come on, and here's an opportunity. Because a lot of times, I can't remember who said, I think it was Viola Davis in her speech, one of the awards, but she said, what separates us is opportunity, right? And a lot of us, we know we have these giftings, but we're waiting for opportunity. And so my word of advice to, those who are listening is that when you have an opportunity, take it. Sometimes we're like, oh, but the platform is not big enough, or this is it. No, when the opportunity is there, because you never know, lamp onto my feet, when you take the step, you never know what's going to happen when you take that step. And so I love it. Like, Amber Arrington, who is an amazing health and wellness coach, one of the best compliments I got this year was when I interviewed her. At the end of the interview, she said, I don't know if you know this, but I am here today because you gave me an opportunity when I first got my certification, in fitness. She said, you heard that I got it and you just invited me. You had never saw me do anything. And she said, from you having that confidence in me gave me the confidence to turn around and to say, you know what, maybe I can move forward. And she is phenomenal.
That's awesome.
Everywhere. I can't turn my email on without getting an email from her. And so I get excited at stuff like that.
Yeah.
And it just really fuels me. So I love having the opportunity. And Sam, there are times where I say that to people, and it's like, well, no, your platform is not it. And that's fine too. And I think the thing to that is, because a lot of times we take everything personal. And there was a time in my life where I did. And we allow all these negative chatter to kind of come in and get us to second guess ourselves, right? And what we're supposed to be doing. And so I had to be like, well, you know what? Well, maybe the platform is not for them, and that's okay. And, and pray that they find a platform that works for them. But yeah, it's just something that I really enjoy doing, that I just enjoy creating a platform for others to have.
Yeah. No, that is beautiful. I really like how you even express that. And I thought you brought up such a really great point about people, or even you thinking, oh, my platform is not big enough, because a lot of times people will not start. I know that's something that I've struggled with as well, is thinking, oh my goodness, I only have this many subscribers. I only have this many followers. And so when you kind of, it's tempting to do that whole comparison, right? Where you say, oh my goodness, especially if it's people like, oh my goodness, this person started after I did, and now they're an influencer, or now they have this, and now they have that. And so if I show up with, what I have, it's like, who am I to even attempt to do anything? But I really like your perspective of, you have to start where you are, and the people who are for you are for you. Yes. And there are people who will be on your platform that may not be on someone else's, and that is okay. And I think that's really the great space to want to get to, is that we are not living in that comparison and that envy, or saying, oh, or even when people are saying, oh, well, maybe you should have this or that, or you need, this many followers, or, you're not really that big of a deal, like not letting those things get to us, and just moving forward step by step in what God has called them to do. Because we said this on the last episode as well. So I just love how it's kind of blending in to a similar theme, but just saying that, what God has for us is for us. And the person who we think is such a big name today, they had to start from somewhere themselves. And a lot of times we forget that there was a world before Instagram, right? Mm-hmm. Yes. There was a world before, social media captured everything. Like, I even think sometimes about the things that I was doing way before the gram existed. And I said, well, man, if we were to have things that we were doing, you know, captured for our whole life. You know, it's just a completely different perspective. So many times we think, well, I just have to make it into this circle or that circle. And we put so much energy on specific people that we lose focus on what our purpose and what we're supposed to be doing. And then it just it doesn't make it as powerful because we're putting so much energy into who we're connected to as opposed to who we're serving and what our larger goal is.
Yes.
Yeah. So so I definitely wanted to also ask you, you know, what motivated you, or how did you choose the topic for the conference? Because I know, and for some of you, do you still have your videos online? Like, are some of the videos still
I do,
up?
yes.
Okay,
on
perfect.
YouTube and Facebook. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so we'll make sure we'll drop those in the notes for anybody who wants to check them out. But how did your theme was each to her own work. And I feel like that even goes in line with what we're talking about right now. So how did you choose that theme?
Ooh, Sammy Sam, let me tell you. Straighten up for this response. You know, it's two things. I was doing all year long, it seemed, I do a lot of devotionals from the Bible app. And I had one that I started last year on Nehemiah and realized I never finished it. So I kind of went back to it earlier this year. And from that, I noticed every time I would select another one to do, like I might do them weekly or depending, you know, however long they are. I didn't know it was on Nehemiah, and then I would open it and it would be on Nehemiah. And I was like, Lord, what are you trying to tell me? Yeah. So that was one part of it. The other part of it is I was having a lot of negative experiences with other women.
Wow.
And probably in the last 2 years. And I was just having a really, really difficult time. And when I would tell other people about it, their response would always be, oh, don't worry about that. They're just jealous.
Oh, wow.
And okay, you know, you hear that the first time, you're like, okay, yep, you're probably right. Let me move it. Let me keep it moving. But it got to a point where it bothered me. It bothered me because I knew that it had to be more, right? The things that, or the things surrounding the experiences were always very petty. And it bothered me because these were women who were in and of themselves great. They just weren't walking in their greatness, didn't see their greatness, and was hating on me because I was walking in mine. Now, there's a whole story to get to how I even got the boldness and confidence to be able to walk fully in who God called me to. It wasn't something that I just showed up and showed out. It was definitely, you know, a journey that God had to get me to a place of confidence. But of course, once you get there, it was almost a chipping away, because the enemy doesn't always come out with it and hit us with a big bam, right? Like, bam, we'll sit down somewhere. He doesn't do that. It's a chipping away at you. It's a chipping away at your self-esteem. It's a chipping away at your confidence. It's a chipping away, you know, at your finances. He comes and he chips away at you until you get to the point where where you say, you know what, I'm exhausted. I'm done with this. And so I had finally learned all of those lessons and gotten to a point where I was walking boldly in who I am. I was wearing orange and didn't care. I was wearing red lipstick and didn't care if you thought I was Jezebel. Because at that point I had known, right? I knew who I was. I knew who I was in God, and I know I didn't have to climb into somebody's box. In order to feel like I was something. And so when I did that and I started operating in the fullness of who God created me to be, then I was met with opposition. Much like Nehemiah. And so, like I said, at first it was like, okay, people would say, oh, they're just jealous of you. It's okay, keep doing you. But then it started bothering me because I'm like, you know what? These aren't just mediocre women. And really, the reality is none of us are mediocre. We all have in us, right?
Right.
But these are women who I can see like have a gift, like have something in them,
Yeah.
but they're so busy looking at everybody else and so busy
Mm.
looking at me that they can't stop to see what God has placed in them and
That's
to
good.
nurture that and unearth that, right? And
Yeah.
so that it was bothering me. It was really bothering me. At the same time, parallel to that, I'm reading Nehemiah and realize that this is exactly what Nehemiah is experiencing. And so
Mm.
I got to one day I was reading and I got to the point that said that after all the opposition, what Nehemiah did is that he never stopped.
That's
And
good.
I will confess that there are times along my journey where I stopped because of the opposition. There are times where I stepped down from positions because of the opposition.
Yeah.
And in hindsight, it's like that was exactly what they wanted, right? That was
Mm.
exactly, and that wasn't what I was supposed to do. So when I read that Nehemiah didn't let the opposition stop him, but what he did was readjusted the strategy. And then it got to the point where he said, and they continued each to their own work.
That's good.
That thing hit my spirit, girl. It hit my spirit. And I said, you know what? That's it. Each
Yeah.
to their own work. Because I want to encourage and empower every single woman who hears my voice that we all have a work to do. And that if we would just spend time discovering that work, nurturing that work, and stepping out into that work, you won't have time to hate on another sister. I don't have time to hate on you, Sam. I love you. I
Good.
love what you're doing. But girl, I don't have time to sit down and scroll through your
Yeah.
Instagram, scroll through your Facebook, and scroll through your YouTube channel and hate on you. I don't
Yeah.
have time. Why? Because I also have my work. And so with that, now my heart and my spirit is to encourage you, is to say, hey, Sam, I love what you're doing. Do you mind coming on my platform?
Yeah.
It's for us to collaborate. It's for us to encourage one another, to share best practices like we often do, And so really at that point, I said, I want to promote this. Like
Yeah.
I am done with the, oh, they're just jealous. Like, I don't want to hear that, because we all have a work to do. We all
Yes.
have a work to do. So that's how I arrived at that.
Wow. No, that is such an amazing story. And I'm really so grateful for you to be so open about your process. So this has been such an amazing conversation. I really appreciate you coming on
No
and
problem.
sharing with us. And so as we close out, do you have any final just words of encouragement for anyone who might be struggling with that boldness and that confidence? Maybe they stepped out before and stopped whatever they were doing and are trying to get courage to step out again. What would you say to them?
Yeah, the one thing I always say is know who you are. At the root of many of our issues, at the root of just a lot of things that we go through is identity, is that
Yeah.
we do not know. Like, we say it, we put on makeup and we're like, yeah, girl, I'm it, whatever, but we really don't believe it, right?
Mm,
And so we have to first believe it. It's transformation from the inside out. Like, we
yeah.
have to believe it within ourselves before we could even externally say it, right? And so that is the first thing. Know who you are. And listen, if you are confused, it really takes some spending time with God, but also sitting and spending time with yourself.
Mm,
And if in 2020 you have not done that with all the time we've had, let me encourage you with the winter months coming to sit down and spend some time with yourself, some
good.
quiet time, do some reflecting. I mean, there are books, there are resources that can help you, but do some reflecting. Look at some decisions that you've made. Look at some
Mm,
experiences that you've had. All of those things come together, and of course, read the word.
yeah.
And once you are rooted and grounded in who you are, I think then you can go from there. One of the other things I do is I do a lot of affirmations. I've been doing I have note cards. I
Yeah.
know, we are in the digital
Yep.
era. I like using note cards, but whether it's in your phone, whether it's in your mirror next to your bed, just a lot of affirmations and reminders, because sometimes we need that, right? Life is
Definitely.
just so cumbersome sometimes. And so just reminding yourself. And once you drop the seed and you start watering that seed, then you'll start to really believe it. And I think we have so much facades running around, and social media has really, and I love social media, it's a great tool, but it's forced us to live double lives because we are taking pictures and we are everywhere doing everything, eating all these meals, and we are taking pictures of it, but we go home and on the inside we are naked, we are starving, we are dying. And the camera does not show your inside, it only shows your out. And so the same amount of time, money, energy you are putting into making sure your face is beat, your hair is done, your makeup is done, we have to put that same amount of time and energy on the inside so that we have a firm and secure foundation.
That's good.
Once you have that, then I think is discovering the why, right? The why, God, am I here? And then the what. What is it that you are calling me exclusively to do? And I always like to say, even, as a minister, I always tell people, and it's not just about those who are in ministry who have a call. It's not just, for the rich and famous who are doing whatever their platform is. We all have something. Now, all of us all of us are not called to the limelight, but we all have something, right? And so discovering that, and then getting started, because some of us, we know, we've done the work, we know, and then our mind gets in the way, like, I don't know where to get started, or we're like, I need to do this, that, and we just get caught up
overwhelmed.
In the and we never get started. So that would be my third and last thing, because I know you asked for I know you didn't expect my response.
No, you're fine.
Last thing is, once you've discovered that, get started. A light unto your feet, a lamp unto our path. The path doesn't light until you walk. Get started.
Yes, excellent. Well, on that note, we are going to end this episode. Thank you so much for your time and for sharing your story. So, Tanna, where can our listeners and viewers find you and learn more about what you're doing?
Sure. You can find me on my website, tannaabraham.com, or the Women on Purpose online.com. I'm also on Facebook and Instagram, Tanna Abraham.
Excellent. Great. And we'll make sure we drop those conference links for anyone who wants to check those out as well. So thank you all so much for joining us for another episode of Confidence and Creativity. I am Samantha McCoy. I am the CEO of Mission Key Communications, where we equip entrepreneurs and leaders to increase their visibility through public relations and personal branding strategies. So I also invite you all to follow me on Instagram. It is smccoyjoy. And I hope that you all tune in and subscribe so that you can know when our episodes are coming out.